I'm Cassidy Questorf. I'm the executive director of the Klamath Film and the Klamath Independent Film Festival. With me today is Ray Robison, the creative mind behind Will and Tess. Ray, it's so great to be chatting with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Always great to be involved with the Klamath Independent Film Festival.
Always great to have you, Ray. So I adored this film. It was so beautiful and so moving and clearly so personal. So do you want to talk a little bit about kind of the inspiration and also just the thought process in making the film and putting it out there for the world to see?
Well, I'd say the film is a little bit of a matter of venting. I'd gone to check up on my parents who live in Montana on a lake by themselves. They're 90 and 96, and you know, my siblings and I are concerned because they really don't have a social circle up there. They're kind of isolated by their own choice, I would say. And if something were to happen to them, uh, we're not quite sure if they would know what to do. And honestly, I guess my dad has this attitude of if he prepares for something to happen, if he prepares for his own death or my mom's death, then it'll happen. So I think there's maybe some superstition in that. But so my sisters and I would approach them about getting things more prepared for that, but it was not met well. So I just kind of wrote this out of frustration, and then I really did it a lot just for myself, but also for my siblings, who I know we're going through the same kind of thing. It was just something I wanted to make, and I didn't really even kind of view it as something which was being made for an audience other than us. So in that way, it was a very personal message just for us to have, I guess. So I made it and threw it out there as far as film festivals, and I hope others get something out of it. Though audiences have their own perspective, have their own history, so you don't know how many of them will get a lot of what's in this. But I think a lot of people who have elderly parents will understand it much more. So I think there's something in there for everyone to draw, but I think specifically those of us who have parents who are fighting getting older will relate to it more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of a beautiful thing about film festivals and making art in general is that there are so many different perspectives and there are so many different people's life histories and what they're bringing to the table. So, yeah, even if maybe someone can't connect exactly to that kind of frame of reference, really elderly parents and dealing with that, there's still so much to take away just with that, child and parent relationship, because that is something that everybody has, in one form or another. We all have a parent at some level. But yeah, so and I love how you're kind of talking about those feelings and themes of isolation, because the way that the film is set up, it really does feel like that. You really do kind of feel that isolation that Tess is going through. Whether it's that long dirt road scene when she's checking the mail and looks down and sees Will and Tess. So what were kind of those shots when you were designing what shots you wanted to get? What was that process like, and really kind of picking up on these themes that you wanted to incorporate?
Well, one of the things that actually worked well in the concept was when I originally came up with the idea for the story. It was pandemic, COVID, not having people close together, so it fit really well, that idea of isolation and phone calls, and so no actor is in the same space as anyone else. So it's just phone calls, and that is also the reality of so much uh, of my relationship with my parents, since they live in Montana. I live in Oregon, and actually I am the closest one of their children. I have three siblings. The others are all in southern Arizona, in the
Wow.
Tucson area. So, I'm physically the closest one, and I am a long ways away. So it's phone calls. My dad's been able to accomplish a little bit of text messaging, but that never works out reliably. And even now with the phone, it's especially with my mom's hearing. Even the phone is difficult to use and to be able to communicate, especially with my mom. And I know it's a frustration for her. And sometimes it would come across as being kind of cute because I would call, as you go through the years and years, but I would call and notice she'd suddenly be very chatty. But it's occurred to me that the reason she had become very chatty on the phone was because if she talked, she didn't have to listen. And she was not so able to hear. So by talking a lot, it covered for not being able to hear what I was saying. So, and I know my siblings were experiencing the same types of things that I was, so we continue to deal with an evolution of aging that goes on in our relationship with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that whole sibling relationship too is portrayed really well in the film with the texting group and, talking to each other and just seeing where everybody's at, kind of also feeling. So, how did your siblings take when did you show them the film and how did that kind of go?
Um, well, from the beginning, because people would say you're going to show it to your parents,
Yep.
and no, I have not. I will not. Um, I think it would not benefit them actually. I think it might upset, especially my dad.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, this is just for my siblings and myself. And I would say I know my sisters definitely got it. And it's because we do really have this idea of if something were to happen, especially to my dad, and that's how it plays out in the story. My mom's the older woman. My mom's 96, and also, well, she's Japanese, so also her ability to relate to so much in our current society is not as strong as my dad. But it's that idea that if something were to happen to my dad, I don't know how we'd find out. Uh, and I don't think it would be this kind of moment, which my wife experienced with her mom calling her up and saying your father died. Uh, I don't know that my mom would be capable of accomplishing something like that. And obviously, my mom is considerably older than my wife's mom was when that happened. But I could definitely see us finding out days later, um, because of the isolated world they live in. And I'm sure there's a number of other people out there that have very similar situations where they're independent elderly parents, aren't really uh, connected enough with uh, others who can get information to you. And even right now, and I'll be going back up to Montana next month to check in on them again. But even at this point, I'm trying to see if I can't, because word is now my dad on medical forms, who to contact in case of emergency. I don't know that anyone's on that. From what I understand from my one sister, he basically for that question just put a big X. No one,
Yeah.
he's such the macho guy that he doesn't need anyone to care for him. He's fine. He's independent. Die with my boots on kind of person. So, but we just face the reality of when that happens, what's going to happen. So anyway,
Yeah.
that
Absolutely. And I mean, again, it's such a deeply personal story. And so thank you so much for sharing kind of all of this with us and with the film festival. Because it is, you wrote kind of in the description that it's like a love poem. You write it for somebody, but you want to share it too. And other people can relate and resonate with that through these shared experiences. And, not only is it that too in this beautiful art form kind of way, but I also feel like it's a conversation starter. Even between me and my friends, we were just talking last night about how, do our parents have plans? Like, what are their, wills? Are their wills set up? Like, there's so many things really that kind of go into this whole part of life when we're dealing with death and we're dealing with these relationships. So I feel like it's a really great way if, families watch this movie, or whoever gets to see this movie, to really start thinking about that, because if it's not set up, then it's just so much worse, honestly, like when something does happen. So yeah, thanks again for sharing that, Ray. It's so special. So is there anything else you wanted to kind of say about that kind of aspect to it?
Um, I do think that is a very good point that you make there. It is something for a lot of people to think about, and of course, especially for, I mean, this is sad to say, but there's all those lessons you learn from your parents, and unfortunately, I'm learning a lesson, which is don't do what my parents are doing. To
Yeah.
learn from their mistakes, I guess. And my wife did buy this book called "I'm Dead, So Now What," and it's a humorous take on just being prepared for your death.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to fill out all this stuff and things like that. And we got it with the idea of showing it to my parents, but really never got the nerve to do that. And it is tough, but I think it's worth putting in people's brains now, putting in your brain now, my brain now, that we need to be prepared for that and do the right thing, which is make sure so much is in place for our demise, that things are lined up and ready to go, instead of being afraid or superstitious that uh, or denying
Mhm.
that it's going to happen. It is the kind of thing we all need to kind of take care of, uh, to be mentally, psychologically prepared to prepare for our own death.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost more of a healthy mindset when you can really accept it, this acceptance of the unknowing and everything. So, really big questions and
Yeah.
conversations today, Ray, which is important, and the beauty of
Mhm.
art that it can really kind of relay these themes and topics between people. So, thank you for getting the conversation started, Ray. But so, kind of more on your side of being a filmmaker, you've been making films for a really long time and also doing, different work too and things like that. So, how do you find the time, Ray, when you get this idea for a project that you want to pursue, a passion project, a venting project, and how do you kind of make that happen for yourself?
Well, it's not easy, but as you may know, I'm retired now from my day job, and I certainly have been one of those people that you're not being given money to make these artistic films. You have to find the time to do that, and you have to work a regular job. And I did that for many years. Sometimes they would be related to the business, like producing television commercials. I worked for TV stations for a number of years, and um, but during those times, it is weekends, evenings, because you do have that passion for it, and in a way, it becomes the hobby
Mhm.
that you have. I imagine if I wouldn't have had this passion for filmmaking, I probably would have spent a lot more time fishing and doing other things like that than I have been over the past several decades. So that's what replaced what for other people might be a hobby. So you definitely do have to find the time and the money and to do that. And that's why for me, I've done so many short films over the past decade is because you can do those in a shorter period of time, and without the resources. But I did, we just wrapped on our feature film, which would be the first feature film that I've directed in over a decade. Um, it is, though, now that I'm retired, I do have the time to do it. And with so many years of knowing what it's like to produce on a very limited budget,
Wow.
you start realizing, okay, what can I do without a whole lot of money? I think I've become very good at doing that because I don't have a lot of money to work with. But there's certainly ways around it, and finding people that share your passion for filmmaking, and collaborating with them is just incredibly wonderful, useful. Because there are people that just really want to be involved in creating something artistically, and so it's nice to work with those people who uh, aren't getting paid or getting paid very little. If this feature, which hopefully people maybe next year at the Klamath Film Festival will see. Just download. I got the latest cut, rough cut, version 2 of our rough cut from the editor, and it's an hour and 26 minutes. It's been
Wow.
trimmed a little bit. That's without the end credits. So, but creating something like that is very difficult.
Yeah.
It becomes exponential over creating a short film in a lot of ways because you have to keep everyone coordinated and together through the entire production schedule. But fortunately, there's so many good people here, and I created this and started with the idea that I knew, and that's the beauty of living in a community for so long. I know so many people that are just so helpful, willing to work in front of and behind the camera. They said, okay, I'm strictly using local talent. And we did go with the SAG-AFTRA micro budget agreement. I think I have 6 or 7 union actors involved. And then that's what's great is when you find those people who worked in LA, had that career, and for whatever reason, part of it being retirement. So a number of the older union actors that have moved to this area after they basically retired still want to act.
Yeah.
So a number of them are in there, but also there's is one woman that's in this film that I'm working with for the first time, and she moved up here, but it was more of the married, daughter 7 years old, and they said we're not raising her in L.A., so they came to Southern Oregon, and she still wants to act. And so she was just very interested in being in this film, even though all I'm able to do financially is cover their gas back
Wow.
and
Yeah.
forth to location. So that is so fortunate, but I think it does come with uh, creating that networking community, and I'm all about networking. I think it's highly important for independent filmmakers to find the resources that are available to them in the form of talented people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of resources like that around.
Sure, absolutely. It's so important really building that community. I love that you're kind of touching on that and everything. And I really do feel like you can find it in most places wherever people are located. If you really reach out and you start going to either networking events or just really finding those people with the same passions. Even in Klamath Falls, we have some really talented actors and filmmakers, and we're a pretty tiny town. So I love that you were kind of really diving into that and that importance of community. But Ray, is there anything you can tell us about the feature film? Anything you want to talk about plot wise or how it's
Um, well, sure, I could talk forever about
going?
it. You're getting to know me, essentially, the idea came after I retired. So last year was my first full year of being retired, and there was a high school reunion in Glasgow, Montana, which is where I graduated from high school. And I had not been back there in over 40 years.
Wow.
After my parents had moved away, there really was no reason to. And it is, according to the Washington Post, they did calculated crunch numbers to determine the middle of nowhere in the continental US. Based on distances from different services. So Glasgow, Montana was deemed the middle of nowhere. And of course, the town is just loves that moniker, and you can buy, sticker, bumper stickers, all that stuff. Glasgow, Montana, middle of nowhere. But it's now, when I was there, the population was around 5, 6,000 maybe. Now it's down to 3, so it's shrinking, but it's not a super small town, but it is a long ways from a lot of things. So anyway, I decided to make a road trip back there, and at the time, I thought, oh, this might make an interesting documentary, going back to, where you haven't been, where you graduated from high school. So I recorded myself, just talking as I'm driving, different memories and stuff. Not only just on the way there, and once I got there, was I do different things. But when I came back and started going through the footage, it was like, nah, this isn't going to make an interesting documentary. I just don't have enough here, because I didn't want to take a camera into the high school union stuff, or into places I'd gone to before. So I still wanted to enjoy the experience. So this film is really somewhat based on that experience. So it's about a woman going back to her hometown that she hasn't been to in over 50 years.
Wow.
And so I started writing it based on that. And instead of, so she goes with her grown granddaughter, and different things happen. A number of them based on my own experiences. A lot of the memories that she has are my memories. I mean, pretty much verbatim. When you see the film, it's like, yeah, that's pretty much how it happened. That's something in my past, and she talks about it as being a part of her past. But then, of course, then being a narrative fictional piece, you start adding more to make it a more interesting uh, story, because
Sure.
there's the people you meet along the way, and they encounter some drug dealers, and to make some friends, and a lot of it is that point where it's going back home, but where the granddaughter discovers more about her grandmother's past and what's in all that.
Wow.
And their relationship. So, I think it's a really nice film. I think there's enough. There's enough action and humor in it.
Yeah.
It's not just a drama. So I think it'll be a good film. I mean, it's certainly looking that way.
That's
Um,
awesome. Well, congratulations, Ray. I mean, obviously, it's a lot, as you were saying, a lot of challenges to make a feature. And I just love it. Feels like with these past two films that we've been talking about today, it's really kind of like the advice that they give writers, like write what you know. And so it's really
mhm.
these personal pieces, which I always think does show through with the artistic quality and the story and everything. It's always really beautifully done when you write what you know and you make what you know. So thank you so much for sharing all of your stories
Thank
with the
you.
world.
Well, looking forward to being over there, and being able to spend a little bit more time in Klamath. Some of the years it's like I drive over, I'm there for a few hours, I drive back here, and I'm looking forward to spending more time over there, and meeting more people that are there, and those types of things. Reconnecting with more people, actually, because because of how the Klamath Independent Film Festival is, being Oregon based. It's nice to run across, and I have the filmmakers from the Portland area that you
Yeah.
see every once in a while, and then to see them again in Klamath is a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We do try to make it a fun time, and so we're excited to have you over here, Ray, and excited to celebrate all of work in filmmaking and your films that you have. So, thank you so much again for being a part of the Klamath Independent Film Festival, and we're looking forward to seeing what you cook up next.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.